The World Cup final was yesterday, and I was right about it all along. But first, I'm going to get into some of the semifinal matchups and the third place matchup before the final happened. So, in the semifinals, it started with Spain and France, and I obviously picked Spain to win this game. But even I was just shocked at just how well everything was going for Spain in this game. They just completely dominated everything when it comes to just playing great defense. France didn't have a shot on goal until the 87th minute, and I definitely think that France could have had a better chance in this game if they played some better defense. And I think part of the reason they weren't able to, at least for that second goal, is William Saliba's injury. Because it was that second goal was directly to his side. He would have had that locked up, best center back in the world. Uh, but I mean, when you're kind of saying, oh, we'd only lose 1-0 compared to 2-0 is, I mean, just really showing just how bad France played overall. Whenever you have just such a stacked team, offensively at least, Ousmane Dembele, Kylian Mbappe, Desiree Doué, Barcola, Olise, Cherky, like legit so many top players for their teams, and you go out there and put up an absolute stinker on the offensive side of the ball, you're just not going to be able to do much. Even those three shots on goals were all directly to the center of the goal where the keeper's going to save that 90% of the time. And so, yeah, I mean, Spain just really dominated this game. I've seen a lot of people talk about that penalty being like, oh, it's really coming from people who don't watch soccer a lot, that don't love the rules, talking about like, oh, that shouldn't be a penalty and stuff like that. Whenever that was like one of the most clear penalties I had seen all World Cup. That's just awful defending by Dean. You got to be keeping your head up, knowing where a player like Lamine Yamal is, who's going to be able to cause some chaos, and you cannot just be swinging your leg like that. That was awful. That was one of the dumbest plays I've seen, um, especially for a team like France who is in a World Cup semifinal. So yeah, that was pretty awful. Looking at that. Um, And then that Pedro Porro goal, I talked about it from the France's defensive side, but just crazy that uh, such a smart play by a right back to do. Um, being smart to make your runs at the right time. Good pass by Danny Almo there as he's falling down. But yeah, just some great play from a right back there to be able to get that second goal for Spain, and they were the better team. They deserved it, obviously. And then uh, before that was, or not before, after that was Argentina and England. And that game, wow, it was, everybody's talked about it at this point of just why did Tuchel play like that or coach like that? Why did he take off Declan Rice and put in Sam Byrne and then play so defensively? And yeah, I'm obviously wondering the same thing of just like you were playing well. You obviously weren't as good as Argentina in this game a lot of the time. Argentina did play like the better team for most of this game, but it was a very even matchup. And when you take the lead like that on an amazing goal, just a crazy cross whipped in there, and then very impressive finish by Anthony Gordon. But it's such a weird decision. Um, when teams have done this in the past against Argentina, where they're playing more back, and like Egypt did, where they're playing more back on a low block, and you're allowing Argentina to have the ball and just play offensively against you and you're just trying to get everybody back. Those teams are a lot worse than England. And so that's why I just feel like it's so dumb from an England perspective, more so than it would be for any other team. Is England's the number 4 ranked team in the world. You have players like Declan Rice and all your attackers who can absolutely still make plays happen when you have 35 minutes left in this matchup. Um, and so that was just such a dumb thing to do. Whenever you can still control this game, you could put another one past Argentina, but no, you just allow Enzo Fernandez, of all players, to score directly in the middle of the goal. That should have been saved every time. I've seen the clip of Jude Bellingham crying about it, and deservedly so. I mean, you gotta get there. And then Lautaro Martinez is scoring in the 92nd minute. Just bad from England overall. You can't be having that in the World Cup semifinal, but when you play like that, you're kind of asking for it. So, I mean, yeah, it was kind of deserved for England to lose like that. It was just kind of sad because I had an England-Spain final, so I was a little sad about that. But now moving on to the third place match, and wow, like genuinely, this was such a fun game to watch. I honestly had kind of forgotten it was about to start, and so I didn't uh, put it on my TV until it had already kicked off. I saw Declan Rice's goal basically right as it happened. And then after that, this game just exploded. England obviously scored 4 in the first half with Declan Rice, Ezri Konsa, and then Bukayo Saka getting 2 to end the half there. And, I mean, 4-0 at half, you're just thinking, oh, this is, I mean, France is just giving up kind of. They don't really care about getting this third place medal. But then they come back and straight out of halftime, Mbappe scores. And then just a couple minutes after that, Barcola scores. And so it's 4-2 at this point. And then this game just goes crazy after this. Mbappe scores again just like 12 minutes after that of Barcola. And then the penalty Bukayo Saka gets, I was watching that and I was like mad at Bellingham because it looked like he was about to be the one taking it, and then very last second he gave it to Saka. And obviously that's a like tactic some teams do of like, oh, you don't want the other team yelling at or talking to the dude who's actually going to take the kick, so I'm going to act like I'm doing it. But nobody was doing that since it's the third place game. France didn't really care that much. So I was kind of annoyed just because I thought Bellingham was going to end up taking it, and I really wanted Saka to get the hat trick, being an Arsenal fan. But I'm glad Saka did get to take it. He deservedly got his hat trick. He should have played in that semifinal against Argentina. Just an awful decision in that one. And then still, though, it was 5-4 at this point. Or no, 5-3 at this point. Dembele scores in the 96th minute. And then Jude Bellingham, just a nasty run. I thought he was going to do a little bit too much on it because he had done a very similar thing just a couple minutes before where he had done a little bit too much and ended up losing the ball. But this one, he just slots it perfectly right into the bottom corner. And England hold on 6-4. Just a great game. The complete opposite of what happened in the final. But, hey, I can't be mad at that game. But now going to that final, and it was just pure domination from Spain. It really never a doubt, to be completely honest. Argentina ended up getting a shot on, or no, they didn't end up getting a shot on goal. They ended up getting 2 shots. But both of them, one of them got blocked before it ever even had a chance to get near the net. And then the other one just way off target by Simeone. And so, yeah, it was just a possession masterclass from Spain, honestly. They had 65% possession, which was probably more at some point. They did let Argentina play a little bit more freely near the end after they had scored, but Spain's defense is just too good. They never were scared at all of Argentina. As soon as they lost the ball, they would press and get it right back. Just um, yeah, and 12 shots on goal to 0. Really, the only thing that scared me as I was rooting for Spain in this game was just you got to take advantage of your chances. Spain, there was no reason this game should have gone to extra time. Spain should have ended this in the 90, but it doesn't really matter since they won the World Cup. It's the final. But if you have a 2.29 xG compared to Argentina's 0.22, you got to be putting away your chances a little bit more, making it not a 1-0 game in extra time. But it really didn't matter. That red card by Enzo Fernandez at the end of the first 90 really cemented this one for Spain. At this point in the game, Spain had just caused so much like anger in Argentina of we literally have not done anything. And so it couldn't have happened to a better person though. Enzo Fernandez, he's very annoying. And so yeah, he sent Kubarsi flying. I was kind of just in shock watching that he did a full flip. Um, but yeah, Enzo Fernandez going off, I was very happy about that, and that really cemented it. And then that cross in to set up the goal for Spain. Obviously, Nico Williams with the header, very impressive. He's going the other way, able to reach his head back around and place it perfectly back into the middle of the box in a very dangerous area. And then Ferran Torres, no mistakes there. Just amazing shot. Not a super hard shot, obviously. There were a lot of players in the box and everything, but for a player of his level, he should be putting them away, and he did put in the perfect spot. And then, I mean, yeah, you could never doubt Spain in this game. I never doubted Spain. I had this right all the way back on June 10th when I originally picked all of these games. I had those semifinal matchups even correct, so I was proud about that. But yeah, I guess that's the end of the World Cup talk for me. It was a great World Cup, honestly. I wish the U.S. would have gone a little bit further than they did, but it doesn't really matter. They never really had a true chance. They were never going to beat a team like Spain. But yeah, the World Cup was so fun. It was great. I'm sad that we have to wait 4 more years for it, but I'm excited for club football to start back up again next month. And then obviously there's going to be some big tournaments in just not too long from now. I guess the CONCACAF Nations League starts this year. So I'm definitely going to still be talking about soccer, but just very sad to see the World Cup end. But I'm excited for the future, and I'm excited to talk about other sports as well, with American football and college football starting very soon. Beginning with the ones that are already announced, I wanted to just make a little graphic here to show what each of them are. So starting with the Cowboys, they get Woody. I think that makes perfect sense. He's a cowboy. Sheriff. Makes sense. Eagles got Dr. Doom. And this one, I feel like isn't the perfect choice, but a team had to get Dr. Doom with Avengers Doomsday coming out this year. So that makes sense for me to give a green team Dr. Doom. Makes sense for it to be the Eagles because a team was going to have to get Dr. Doom. Now, the Bills get the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and I think this makes sense. I mean, there's not a ton of different options to give the Bills, so I think this is a fine pick for them. Yeah. Patriots get Captain America. I like this pick a lot, actually. I think Captain America is a good pick for the Bills. Obviously, it matches colorways. The Patriots are very much based off the American flag with their logo and everything. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Jets got Buzz Lightyear. I feel like this is mostly a color thing and also I guess flying. I guess nothing really too like crazy about this one. Not the best pick, but also a pretty simple one. Giants got Wreck It Ralph. It's not the pick I would have gone for. I would have gone with Spider Man, obviously. That would have just made a lot more sense to me because the Giants are red and blue. Spider Man's red and blue. He lives in New York. Ralph doesn't really make sense to me. It's actually kind of an odd pick, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. But that's who they went with. Raiders and Darth Vader, perfect. Darth Vader is kind of, I mean, the Raiders already call their stadium the Death Star, and then obviously the Raiders just makes a lot of sense for Darth Vader, in my opinion, color wise. Then the Washington Commanders got Ham from Toy Story. Makes sense to me, I guess. I mean, their mascot's kind of a pig or whatever, so that makes sense, I guess. Nothing too crazy about that. Similar to like the Bills of just I don't know what else it'd be. And then this one's like perfect of the original ones that got picked. Captain Hook and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just beautiful. Now we're gonna get into my picks. I'm staying in Florida for this next one. It's gonna be the Miami Dolphins getting Nemo. Um, I almost went with Mickey Mouse here just because Miami is in Florida, obviously, and I feel like they have the most ties to Disney World of any of the Miami or of any of the Florida teams. They obviously have a lot of Mickey Mouse stuff. So I almost went with Mickey, but I just feel like you got to go with Sea Creature. You got to go with Nemo here. Next up, I have the Chargers going with Storm. I think they're going to be pushing a lot of X-Men type stuff here with this because X-Men are obviously a very popular Marvel team, but then also the X-Men are going to be in a lot of Marvel movies going forward. I think Storm fits here. I almost went with Lightning McQueen, but I have him as a different pick a little later on that you'll see that I think doesn't necessarily make more sense. I just feel like if you're gonna do if you're gonna give the Chargers Storm like I am, you gotta get Lightning McQueen somewhere, and so I found a place for him to be. Um, Chiefs, I think this is perfect having Kermit. Obviously, everybody says Patrick Mahomes sounds like Kermit, and I just think it'd be funny to do that. So I have the Chiefs getting Kermit here for that reason. And you gotta have a Muppet. And then the Broncos get Bullseye. There were two Disney horses. They're both on here. And I was really debating on which one to put where. But I ended up going Bullseye for the Broncos. It was really just a coin toss basically on which one goes where. But I think Bullseye fits the Broncos. Now the Jaguars, I gave Tarzan. I think this is a good pick just because he's a kind of a like jungle kind of creature or human, but lives in the jungle and everything like that. And I think he fights a jaguar in his movie and everything. So I just think that's a good fit for the Jaguars to have. So that's why I went with them. The Tennessee Titans, I'm giving Hercules. Um, I think they're gonna have some Disney movie characters, and obviously Hercules is not necessarily a Disney movie character, but I think it fits for the Titans. I almost went with Thanos, but I didn't want to do too many Marvel characters. There are a couple more, but I didn't necessarily pick that for this one because of that. Because I mean, obviously Thanos is the Mad Titan. I just thought Hercules made a little bit more sense though, and it makes a lot of sense that they would have a person like Hercules. I think I skipped over it. The Texans, I'm giving Animal. I almost went with Ferdinand just because obviously Bulls, but I think that Disney is going to have another Muppet. Obviously, Disney just started with Rock and Roller Coaster being a Muppets themed ride, and Animal is a huge part of Muppets Mayhem and everything like that. So I think Animal for the Texans is fun just because I also just don't really want Ferdinand for the Texans. I'm obviously a Texans fan, and I don't want Ferdinand. I'd rather have Animal. So that's also why I picked Animal here. Now moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. This is the other horse team, and I gave them Maximus from Tangled. And the reason I went with this is obviously there's just not a ton of horses, and I feel like this fits well. And then also, Disney's making a live action Tangled movie that's coming out in the next, probably next year, I think. I'm not exactly sure when it's coming out, but they're making a live action version of Tangled. It seems fine to put a horse for that. Now, the Packers, I gave Remy from Ratatouille. He's a chef. He's holding cheese in the picture I picked for them. I think that's perfect because the Packers are the cheeseheads, so that's why I went with that. Now moving on to the Lions. There were a couple I was debating on a little bit of what to put for the Lions, but it was just an obvious choice. I feel like to put Simba, and I found other places for the other characters I had in mind. But the Lions for Simba makes a lot of sense. Obviously, he's a lion. They're going to have a character from Lion King because that's a huge Disney movie. So that makes a lot of sense for me. Now, the Bears, I'm giving Winnie the Pooh. There were a couple different ideas I had for the Bears, but I just thought Winnie the Pooh fits. Obviously, he's a bear. Yeah, not too much going into that. I just feel like it fits well. Now, for the Vikings, I have Thor. I didn't really have a ton of thoughts of what to put for the Vikings. Obviously, you could have put another character from Hercules, maybe. But I just thought Thor fit well because you're going to have some Marvel characters, and I think this one really fits a lot, especially from Norse mythology and everything like that. So I think Thor was a great pick here. Now, the Rams, I'm giving Stitch. This one, I had Cyclops originally for the Rams, but I decided against it because I just feel like they're going to be. I think Stitch has to be for a team. And I just feel like with all the teams I've already picked for blue characters, it just kind of leaves the Rams to be up for change. And that's also why I had chosen Storm for the Chargers, because if you're not going to have Cyclops, you're going to have a different X-Men. So I picked Storm for the Chargers. And so, and here, I knew Stitch had to be somewhere. So Stitch is going to the Rams. Now, San Francisco 49ers, I'm giving Baymax. I just think that fits really well. Obviously, Big Hero 6 is set in a place called San Francisco or something like that. I think that's how you say it in that movie. But that's pretty much all the reasoning I had for that. But also, Baymax is insanely popular. So that obviously makes a lot of sense to me. Now, the Seahawks, I had a lot of trouble trying to figure out a character to use for the Seahawks. I didn't necessarily want to do another Star Wars character just because I had already picked one further, or not necessarily a character. You'll see. But I didn't really want to do another Star Wars character. But then I was just thinking, and I was having a tough time picking for the Seahawks, and I was like, they're gonna do Luke Skywalker. That fits really well, especially Luke Skywalker with his green lightsaber. Now moving on to the Cardinals. This was the team I had the very toughest time picking for. This is the last team I picked. And so I literally looked up red Disney characters and I was like, oh yeah, Anger's awesome. And so I gave them to the Cardinals. Now the Panthers, I said I was going to fit Lightning McQueen in here somewhere. The Panthers, I originally had Black Panther, obviously. But then I was just thinking, I was like, I don't know if they'll do that because I already have a lot of Marvel characters picked. And then also, like, I don't know if they'll use Shuri Black Panther. I don't know if they'd use Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther. I just don't know if they would do that. So that's why I ended up going with Lightning McQueen, because also North Carolina is very much in a racing, like, it's very popular for racing that area. So I think Lightning McQueen works perfect. Also, Blue Lightning McQueen is a very cool colorway for him. Now, the Saints, I gotta give it to Gambit. That's just the perfect character. I almost went with someone from Princess and the Frog, like Tiana or the villain from that movie. But I just thought that Gambit's fun. He has a very thick accent, and I think he fits perfect. He's obviously from this area, so I think it works well. The Falcons, this is the one non-character that I used. It's the Millennium Falcon. I almost went with Sam Wilson's Captain America, but I don't think they'd do two Captain Americas, and I don't think they'd say, oh no, he's Falcon now again. That just didn't make sense, and that's why I'm going with the Millennium Falcon here. I almost went with Han Solo also here, but then I was like, I don't know. So that's just why I ended on this, even though it's not actually a character, it's a ship. Now, the Steelers, you got to put Iron Man somewhere. It fits perfectly color-wise. So Steelers get Iron Man, and I almost went Magneto here. A lot of people have been saying that, actually, but I just thought Iron Man, you got to have him somewhere, and so I put him here. Now, the Ravens, this one was another one I had a tough time picking for, just because there's not a ton of... Really, all the bird teams are just kind of hard for me to pick for, just as Disney doesn't have very many. And so this is a pick I want it to be, and it's Darkwing Duck. This one would just be really cool in my opinion. I doubt they do this. I bet they'll find some other type of thing to do for the Ravens, but this is one I really want to happen. I just think it'd be really cool. So that's why I picked Darkwing Duck for the Ravens. And then now for the Bengals, I have Tigger. Tigger is one of my favorite characters from Winnie and the Pooh. I think obviously that's a character a lot of people like, and he matches the Bengals a lot. I also almost went with there's I think an actual Bengal in Jungle Book. I almost went with that. I've seen people say that, but I just decided to go with Tigger here. And then the final pick I have is the Browns and Goofy. I almost went with Pluto here just because it's another dog. But then I remembered, obviously Goofy wears an orange shirt. The Browns are a very goofy team, honestly. And so that's why I went with Goofy for them. And yeah, honestly, that's really all I have to say about these NFL and Disney collab. I'm excited for it. I'm really excited to see what the Texans get because I will definitely get whatever it is. But I do hope it is someone cool like Animal. But yeah, that's all my picks. We are 52 days now from the start of the NFL season, and I'm going to be getting into some AFC West record predictions now. Starting with the Chiefs, I already have 2 games picked for them from previous episodes of me picking the AFC South and AFC North. But starting with week 1, I have heard Mahomes is doing well on his injury process. But I think the Broncos are a really strong team. Especially they made it to the AFC Championship game last year. I think the Broncos will be able to pull this game out against the Chiefs. But then they have 3 really easy games right after that against the Colts, Dolphins, and Raiders, where I think they win all of those very easily. And a very early bye week for them, which might hurt them later in the season, especially when you have a quarterback coming back from injury. And I do also think they have some really tough matchups coming out of this bye week. But I do think they'll win this one at home against the Chargers because I feel like they'll end up splitting against the Chargers, honestly. Yeah, I just feel like if they were going to split with them, they'll win one at home and lose the one away. And then I'll go with the Seahawks to take that win in Seattle. I do think the Seahawks are going to regress a little bit this year, just after winning the Super Bowl, but they're still going to be a great team, and they're still going to definitely make the playoffs, in my opinion, and I think they'll beat the Chiefs here. This one's tough for me against the Broncos again because I had the Chiefs losing at home to the Broncos in week 1, and as much as I would like to pick the Chiefs to split the series against the Broncos in that, just because I feel like the Chiefs are going to be really good this year, I do not think they're going to win that game. I just think that's a really tough matchup for them, especially right after they had to go to Seattle. And then I think they'll clean up some of these wins here against the Jets, Falcons, and Cardinals, honestly, to get to 8-3. Yeah, it's again they just have 3 really easy matchups in a row. They're kind of similar to week 2, 3, and 4. And there's not much I really have to say about that. The Chiefs are better than all of those teams. I'd be kind of surprised if they lost any of those. Um, but then they have two really tough matchups again. It's kind of weird, the Chiefs' schedule. It's just like a couple really hard games, a couple really easy games. It's not very mixed between them. And I think they're going to lose both of these games away in Buffalo and away at the Rams. The Rams, I think, are the Super Bowl favorites right now, obviously, and going away there is going to be awful this year. Um, Facing Myles Garrett. And then the Bills, I think, they're always going to be a great team, and just playing in Buffalo in that environment is going to be really hard for the Chiefs, especially the Chiefs. And they do have some tougher games here to end the season, too. And it is going to be a little bit difficult for the Chiefs because I could very much see them going like a 10-7 or something like that here. And I think that is what I'm going to pick. I have them winning against the Raiders, losing against the Chargers, and then I'm a little unsure what game I'll give them to win here. I think I'm going to give them the win over the Niners. I just think having the Bengals and Patriots back-to-back weeks right after you had Bills and Rams is going to be tough. I feel like the Chiefs are going to be a little bit tired out by the time they have to play the Patriots, even though they'll be at home. So I just think that'll be a little tough for them. But I think they are going to be better than the Niners. And then, obviously, the Raiders, they should clean up on that game. And so that would bring me to the Broncos. And obviously already picked those games. So the Broncos, in my opinion, are already looking great before I've actually even picked the rest of their schedule, starting 4-0. But I do have them taking a loss to the Rams here. The Rams are going to be a tough team to beat. I'm not sure exactly who I'm going to have them lose to because they're not going 17-0. But it is going to be tough to find a loss for them a couple of times. But then I think the Broncos will bounce back here against the Niners. And I think they'll lose to the Chargers away. Obviously, the Broncos are going to be a good team, but I just think they're going to have a little bit of struggles at some points in the season whenever you're going against other good teams. And obviously, Bo Nix's injury is going to play a bit of a part of it. And I mean, he's going to be there all of the season, honestly, but it is going to be a bit different. Obviously, it's a tough injury to come back from when you fracture your ankle. Is such a important part of being able to move around as a quarterback. So there's going to be a little bit of a getting back in that game sense. So some of these early games like the Rams is going to be a bit tough. And I feel like I'm being nice giving them wins over the Chiefs and Jags, who are also great teams. So, I think that's a fair loss, both of these, honestly. And then I am also going to give them the loss against the Seahawks. Again, like I said, the Seahawks I don't think will be as great as they were last year, but they're not going to fall off that much. But I do think the Broncos will take care of some games that they should take care of, with that one over the Cardinals there, even though it's away. The Cardinals are going to be pretty bad this year, especially now without Kyler Murray on the team anymore. And so, I think the Broncos will take care of that pretty easily. I obviously gave the Broncos this win over the Chiefs. And now for Broncos-Panthers, I'm going to go with the Broncos here in this Week 9. I just think, as much as I do think the Panthers will be competitive again this year, they obviously made the playoffs last year. I think that the Broncos are just a better, the next step up over the Panthers, and being at home might help the Panthers. They might be able to sneak something out of this game, but I think the Broncos will be able to take care of it. And then Week 11 against the Raiders, I have the Broncos again. The Raiders, I don't know who I'm going to give them wins against, honestly. It is going to be a tough year for them. I don't even know if Fernando Mendoza is going to play that much. Probably not, honestly, in my opinion. So yeah, I just don't see them beating a team like the Broncos. I obviously picked the Broncos over the Steelers when I picked the Steelers record last week. So now 8-3 going into Week 13 against the Dolphins. I have them winning this game. The Dolphins again are going to be really bad this year, and so yeah, the Broncos at home especially should be able to deal with that easily. Then going away to New York and then Las Vegas, I think the Broncos will get those wins also pretty easily. I mean, it's just a good stretch for the Broncos to be able to rest up before some really tough matchups to end off the season. Where I do have them going, I'm going to say 1-2. 1-2. I'm going to pick the Bills to beat the Broncos in Week 16. I just think the Bills are going to be tough. And I don't know. The the Broncos obviously is the first part of that tough stretch for them. But I just don't. I just don't know how much the Broncos will have left in the tank at this part of the season, where the Bills are going to be really fighting for this game, just because of what happened at the end of the playoff game last year with the interception and everything like that. I think this is going to be a huge game for the Bills to try and get back at the Broncos, where the Broncos, I think, will be preparing more to end the season off and get ready for playoffs at this point of the year. And then going to New England is going to be a tough matchup. The Patriots obviously beat the Broncos in the AFC Championship game last year, and I think they'll beat the Broncos again. So not too much to say about that. Just it's a tough matchup going away to New England. And then I think the Broncos will end their season off with the win against the Chargers. I think those two losses back to back against the Bills and Patriots will maybe put the Broncos in a spot where they're like not necessarily fighting for a playoff spot. I think they'll take care of what they need to take care of to be able to get their playoff spot in the division especially. But I do think that they're going to be wanting a higher seed, and so I think that they're going to be really wanting to win this game, and they probably won't end up resting their starters like some other teams might at this point in the year. Now going on to the Chargers, I'd already picked these games. All right, so 3-3, not the best for the Chargers, but a lot of the games I'd already picked for them were some really hard games for them. So starting week 1 against the Cardinals, I think they have that really easily. Week 2 against the Raiders, I think they have that really easily. And then this is really hard for them. I think the AFC West has a very, very tough schedule, which is having to play the AFC East and NFC West is really hard this year. And so I think that I'm going to have them split right here against the Bills and Seahawks. I think if I had to give them one, it's the Bills game. I'm not completely sure why I feel that way, but I just do. I don't think the Bills are going to be able to sweep the AFC West. That'd just be kind of crazy. And as of right now, if I would have picked the Chargers, it would be like that. So that's kind of my reasoning for that. Which I guess I also have the Seahawks sweeping the AFC West, but I think that's more likely for a team like the Seahawks. So now 6-4, or I had them. Obviously, I have the Chargers beating the Broncos and losing to the Chiefs in Week 6. Now they had a pretty early bye week, not as bad as the Chiefs bye week, but still not something you want to see. And I think it's going to be really hard coming out of the bye week facing the Rams away, or not really away. It's in LA. They share the stadium, but I just think facing the Rams in general in a stadium where you're not actually the home team, the Rams are the more popular LA team. So yeah, that's going to be a matchup where I think the Rams will take care of business there. I had them beating the Texans, though, the week after that. It's going to be a good bounce back matchup. Obviously, you just had the bye week a couple weeks before, um, and then you had a really hard matchup against the Super Bowl favorites. But I think that bye week's going to play an important role in their win over the Texans in Week 9. But then traveling to Baltimore Week 10, that's just uh, too rough for me, especially after you just face the two hardest defenses in the league. Well, I don't know exactly if the Rams will be one of the hardest exactly. I know that defensive line is going to be crazy though, but the Texans defense obviously is going to be insane this year. Then going to Baltimore right after that is too tough. But I do think the Chargers will pick up some wins here. I think they'll go on a pretty good winning streak because I have them beating the Jets at home. I think they'll beat the Patriots at home. I think they'll be able to cause enough problems for the Patriots in this game. I think they can beat the Bucks away. I think they'll beat the Raiders away, which now brings them to 10-5 for me. And I honestly, I feel like they'll end up going 11-7. And I think the Dolphins might give them a shock here, or 11-6. Sorry, I think the Dolphins will end up giving them a shock here in Week 16. Partly because I just want to be able to find something for the Dolphins, but it's also in Miami, so you never know. I just think at this point I would have had the Chargers on a 5-game winning streak, and so going away to a team you're not really focusing on as much when you have the Chiefs and Broncos to end your season right after might end up causing some problems for the Chargers here. And then obviously I picked the Chargers to beat the Chiefs in Week 17. And then that matchup against the Broncos, I already picked it, but that's going to be 4 to the division. Like, that's going to be pretty huge. I obviously picked the Broncos to win it, but that's going to be a huge matchup in my opinion because I have them fighting for the divisional spot in that game. And now the Raiders, I have them losing every game I've picked so far. It's going to be rough for them this year. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be rough for them this year, but I do think they'll find their wins sometimes. I think they'll beat the Dolphins at home. You're getting a little more excited about having your first overall pick being Fernando Mendoza, who's great in college, at least last year. And so I think there's going to be some excitement there, even though I don't think Fernando Mendoza is going to play that game. But I just think at home Week 1 against a team that's just as bad as you, honestly, is going to be a game that the Raiders can win. But then, obviously, I just picked them losing to the Chargers. I think they'll lose to the Saints away. I think the Saints will be competitive to good teams this year, so losing to a bad team is Then losing to the Patriots, I have then losing to the Bills, then losing to the Rams. 1-12 is really hard for the Raiders this year. I'm being tough on them, but they also have just a really, really bad schedule for trying to find wins whenever you're not a good team. So I could definitely see the Raiders having an awful pick again this year. But I do think they'll find some wins, like against the Jets. And it's not necessarily just because I think the Jets are going to be awful this year. I do think they're going to be pretty bad. They have the 2nd overall pick. But I just think that the Raiders at this point, they would have gone on a 6-game losing streak is what I have. And that's just, you're going to be fighting a lot harder than some other teams in some of these games to get some type of win. But then going to San Francisco, just after that is going to be a matchup that's not looking great for the Raiders. Then playing Seattle, even though it's in Las Vegas, you're just not beating the Seahawks. And then I picked the Raiders to lose to the Broncos in Week 11, lose to the Browns in Week 12. Then their bye week, they have a really late bye week. But then I have them losing 3 straight right after that to the Chargers, Broncos, and Titans. But then I think they might be able to win a game against the Cardinals, which would round them out at 3-14, which is very, very bad. I mean, you don't want that if you're the Raiders after you just had the first overall pick and you're trying to get back into a as a team where you can compete and maybe make the playoffs. But the Raiders just aren't there yet. So I have them going 3-14. So my AFC West champions as of right now are the Denver Broncos. In second place, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. In third, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. And then in very last, the Las Vegas Raiders.